This is going to be on your Facebook page.
Yeah, we're on live now. Hello, everybody. Hello. We are back with Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. I'm your host, Tony Renfro, and we're here tonight with my special guest tonight. It will be Joseph TRAHAN, elected Jefferson County Democratic chairperson. And along with him is Joe DeShotel, Texas State Representative. They're going to be joining us in just a few minutes, and so I can go over some things that we need to kind of brush over on Knowledge is Power. I'd like for you all to just share this video because we're on now on Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. So if you are not a Facebooker, you can always go to your YouTube Live and just subscribe to Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Or you can just watch it on your television at that time when that time comes. So thank you again for joining us, and we want to make sure we get enough audience here ready for to go as we go live. We had CAROLYN GUIDRY, our Jefferson County clerk, was supposed to be here, but with conflict of interest, she won't be able to make it. But we will have my Miss GUIDRY on real soon. She wants to be here, so we're gonna have her on real soon. And also next, let me get to this screen here. Let's put this across the screen. Hold on, let me move it around a little bit. There we go. I'm here with my guest, but also let's explain to you guys that on this Tuesday coming, my guest will be the Texas Young Democrats of Southeast Texas would be my special guest on Knowledge is Power Podcast Live this Tuesday at 8 p.m. right here on Facebook and YouTube Live. Joseph TRAHAN, Democratic Chairman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well.
The Texas State Representative. Back again. Didn't think I had you back so soon.
No, I'm glad to be back, Tony.
It is great to have you back. Great to have you back. We are got plenty of guests already online watching us, and we're going to start the show with Joseph TRAHAN, my good friend. Tell us a little bit about Joseph, your position, and just explain to the audience, the viewers, that what is your purpose.
So March 3rd, I was elected chair of the Jefferson County Democratic Party. Right now, I'm chair-elect. And so in that capacity, the chair is responsible for fundraising, event planning, and overall organization surrounding a local Democratic Party. Though that entails get out the vote efforts, which include phone banking, focusing on it, making sure, which is a topic of conversation tonight, making sure people that are eligible to vote by mail, advertising, make sure that our candidates have all the support that they need to be successful. And we have a number of great candidates on the ballot coming up in November, including Representative Joe DeShotel, who I look forward to voting for, Sheriff Zena Stevens. We also have Constable Javon Pollard, and so that's very exciting times. And we also have Adrian Bell, who's running against Randy Weber. And so all in all, it's to help navigate our candidates, help inspire and motivate our voters, get volunteers together, and have a really good, well-run operation at the headquarters on Calder in Beaumont.
Well, great. Joseph, tell us a little bit more about something very important to our friends and those who are watching tonight. Let's talk a little bit about mail-in ballots. Joseph, State Representative Joe DeShotel, you can chime in whenever you like to. But let's talk a little bit about the mail-in ballot. I want to know, and I want the audience to know, how important it is to have mail-in ballots, and also the absentee ballots.
So, from my perspective as chair-elect of the Jefferson County Democratic Party, we should provide every opportunity for individuals to exercise their constitutional right to vote, and that includes the ability to vote by mail. Now, other states will allow no excuse mail-in ballot voting, irrespective of one's age, whether they're 18 or 99, irrespective of whether or not they have a disability. But the way that things are now, and that has a direct impact on elections, has to do with the restrictions that exist here in the state of Texas. So if you're an individual watching now that's in Jefferson County or somewhere around the state of Texas, you are only eligible to request a vote by mail application in the event that you are 65 years of age or older, you have a disability, or you are living, or you will be outside of the county during early voting and election day. So for example, if you're a college student, and in my case, born and raised here in Beaumont, but I went off to the University of Texas at Austin, I had the ability to request a vote by mail application to vote absentee because I was in college. And so I wasn't able to come and vote in person here in Jefferson County, even though that was the place of my residence. And so all in all, those are the three qualifiers to enable someone to vote by mail. Now, what's going on right now is we have a July primary runoff taking place that's scheduled for July 14th. Now, the ability to, the last day to apply by mail to vote in that July 14th election is going to be July 2nd. And so, but before then, exists now, you will be able to request a vote by mail application if you contact the county clerk's office. And then on that final note, when you do receive your vote by mail application, you want to make sure that you select annual ballot, because that will enable you to vote for in any election via mail that takes place in that election calendar year. So in this case, we have the July 14th primary runoff, as well as the November 3rd presidential election. So if you select that to request a vote by mail application, you'll be able to do both this election cycle.
Just to make this, to clarify this, make sure, Joe, that they know when is the deadline for, again, when is the deadline for the mail-in ballots?
July 2nd to be able to vote by mail in the July 14th primary runoff.
So people, those mail-in ballots should be in the mailbox on what day, Joe?
They have to meet in by no later than July 2nd, Thursday, end of business day.
Joe, you want anything to add on to that?
Well, it's sort of in those who fit in those three categories certainly should go ahead and get their mail-in ballot. We're trying to include those individuals who have a fear of contracting coronavirus based upon their medical conditions that they may have that makes them more susceptible. That is being battled back and forth in both the federal and the state court. I would suggest that if you do have a fear, just you go ahead on and make the request. And if the court decides that you cannot do a mail-in ballot unless you're in those three categories that Joe suggested, well, then don't use the ballot. But should the court side decide that you can, you don't want to have passed the deadline by which you can do that without going and voting at present. But so be very careful, because if the court rules that you cannot use a mail-in ballot and you do use a mail-in ballot, it could cause you some issues. So it's something that you really have to pay attention to. It's so sad that the governor and the attorney general are trying to, and they're just following President Trump's directive, keep people from voting by mail. Because if you vote by mail, you fear, the CDC saying stay out of crowds, stay, social distancing, don't go out unless you have to. And people are afraid to get in those crowds and those lines to go and vote. And the Republicans are saying, well, that's too bad. You either got to, because many of them seem to not be concerned about social distancing or the coronavirus, as the president sending those messages out.
You're absolutely correct, Joe. And that is something that we must do. We was talking backstage earlier, is that this general election in November, we've got to vote like we've never voted before. We have to go all out and vote this time. And matter of fact, we need to go out all the time and vote. This is why we're having problems right now. Right now we're having problems because we don't vote. Now we need to take this energy, and we're standing on the protesting and we've got this energy and we are merging and we want to come together. That's the energy we're going to need in November. Do you agree?
Oh, it's really, voting is the key. If we had elected different individuals to be governor, to be attorney general, Democrats, we wouldn't be having those issues. Even the issues with the police department and the culture in the police department could change if you have individuals in office, either on a local level, that are concerned about those issues and would discipline properly individuals. And if a police officer is suspended from the city of ABC, he can't come to Texas and go to work in one of our cities if he was run out of another police department.
Right.
Allow that. I was reading somewhere in one of these cities, only 2% of the police officers live within the city that they are working in. And that is another issue. And that issue here in Beaumont way back when I was on city council, trying to require that policemen live within the city limits of the city. So, you know, they had some vested interest in the city that they're patrolling. Those are significant issues.
You're right.
We don't elect people who really care on a state level, particularly. We have no one on the state level that we can go to with issues of that nature, because their issues are totally different. Their interests are totally different.
Absolutely. And
if I may add, just for some perspective, you know, Representative DeShotel is absolutely, I'm in full agreement with the fact that it does matter who we elect in statewide office. And we've seen a trend over the last, I would say, 4 years in which statewide offices, the gap between Republicans winning and Democrats losing is being closed. We saw that with Joe DeShotel. We saw that with Mike Collier and a number of other official capacities. Now, one of the things that I think has emotionally depressed, I think, a number of Democrats here in Jefferson County is the shift that we have seen over the last 20 years. You know, we lost Congressman Nick Lampson. We lost Congressman Jack Brooks. We lost David Burnson, as well as Carl Parker. And the last giant we have is all with us live right now, Representative Joe DeShotel. That is our last safety line, our last aspect of representation at the state level. And so moving forward, we have to make it a point of encouraging not only what I call triple Ds, which are people that are the most consistent that show up to vote in every primary election, but also people in their 20s and 30s, which hardly vote in a primary election, much less a general election. And so it's being able to illustrate that history of the power that we once had as Jefferson County residents by having such a stronghold of state representation. And by that shifting, I think it's really caused an increase in voter apathy. But at this point, a great example, you know, you had President Donald Trump, who won in Jefferson County in 2016 by less than 500 votes. And so what that indicates to me is that it's not a matter of us not being a Democratic county. It's a matter of us not showing up to vote and to vote our full power. And I really just want to impart on everyone that's watching that we do have the power. The numbers are in our favor. It's a matter of making use of the time that we have. I mean, we're provided 2 weeks of early voting for general election. On top of election day, several hours it's open. One weekend we have during early voting. And so there's really no excuse not to go vote. And so for those of you that are concerned about COVID-19, which the director of the CDC has indicated, someone who's in Trump's administration, that he worries that there will be a second wave of COVID-19. And if that is to occur, we need to make it clear to everyone, as you, Tony, as well as Representative Joe DeShotel stated previously, to go ahead and request a vote by mail application, to vote by mail as a plan B. Even if you prefer to go and vote in person, you can still request a vote by mail application and receive a ballot, but you don't have to, you're not restricted to that. If you feel like it's safe enough, if COVID-19 ends up not being the issue that some people think it will be come November 3rd, you can still go. It's just a plan B. And so I really want to impart on everyone that's 65 years of age or older, who may be a college student that's living outside of the county, or even an individual that considers themselves to have a disability to go ahead and register to request a vote by mail application, because there is no requirement for there to be a doctor's note or some official certification to indicate that someone has a disability. I mean, things happen. You could fall down your stairs and be unable to go to vote. And so that's something that's unforeseen that takes place. And by statute, that would qualify as the ability to vote by mail. So there are a number of ways that you can exercise your right to vote, but it starts with us here in Jefferson County.
And Tony, let me say this regarding that issue, something I just thought about, because I experienced it. I requested a vote by mail ballot because I thought I was going to be out of town, and I happened to be able to go to the polls in person and vote. If you do that, if you request a vote by mail application and you send the application in and they mail you a ballot and you decide to show up to the polls, what would happen is you would vote what's called a provisional ballot in person. That is, you would be allowed to vote, and they would take that envelope and put it aside until the deadline passes for that mail-in ballot to come in, because they don't want you to vote twice. They don't want the mail-in ballot to come in and you count that and you vote it in person. So that's something to be aware of, that if you do request a mail-in ballot and decide to go in person and vote, so that you understand. They say, well, your name on this list, you can't vote. Yes, you can, but you have to vote what's called a provisional ballot. They put it in a separate envelope and they hold it until the deadline, make sure that your mail-in ballot didn't come in, just so people would understand what a provisional ballot is.
Right. So that's great. And now, since we're still on mail-in ballot, I've got a question here, guys. Can you read that question there? You can see it on the screen, right? Most people I have talked to, Verlie McDaniels is saying most people I've talked to have not received their mail-in ballot applications. For some, it's been nearly 2 weeks.
They have to request it now. I guess they've requested a mail-in ballot.
Yeah, that's true.
And CAROLYN will be able to better explain that when she comes on, how that actually works.
And I just pulled up, if you have a concern, you can contact the Jefferson County Clerk's office. That actually pulled up the district clerk, who is Jamie Smith, we're lucky to have in elected office as well. But I'm going to pull up the number for you so that you'll be able to contact CAROLYN GUIDRY's office, because that'll be the person that you will be able to inquire about whether or not the vote by mail application has been received to our office, because it goes to our office, and when they can be expected to return that ballot.
Repeat that number again so they make sure that they have that number to call about the ballots.
It's 409.
Yes.
It's 409-835-8475. And again, that's for the county clerk's office, CAROLYN GUIDRY, 409-835-8475. And they're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Great. Thank you, Joseph. Since we're talking about voting, and we're staying on the kind of voting, make sure, again, people understand that we must vote. And we also have an important election on the 14th of July. Am I correct? Yes, 14th of July. That's a runoff election. That's going to be very important as well. We have to vote local all the way up to national. And it starts at local. And we've got to get some strong representation here to represent us. When I first left Beaumont in '84, I left Beaumont, and Beaumont, to go to Jefferson County was a Democratic stronghold. Mm-hmm. When I returned in the 2000s, we was not. What actually happened in that 25-year span?
Well, and I'm sure Representative DeShotel, having experienced it, could speak more to this, but I can say from my perspective, I think that, as I said earlier, it has to do with this feeling of emotional exhaustion. You know, for so long, so many of our party's veterans have fought hard, have organized, have supported so many phenomenal candidates that were in office for many years, that represented us well, that brought results in terms of infrastructure, the Port of Beaumont, the Port of Port Arthur, et cetera. And we had that strong group that included Joe DeShotel. Thankfully, we still have him in office. And I think that as time has gone on, people have become increasingly apathetic. Many of the people who supported our party, for lack of a better word, are dying out. And so there has to be a balance where we have to be able to expand our base and engage with people that are in their 20s and 30s, that people that historically, I've talked to County Clerk CAROLYN GUIDRY about this, are not voting. I think at one time, I forgot which primary election, we had less than 2,000 people between the ages of 18 and I think it was 29 that voted. There are tens of thousands of us here in Jefferson County. And so I think it's just a matter of strategy. I will say we have seen an occurrence of Republicans that have been winning office, but at that same time, we've also seen many Democrats who've won office. We have Sheriff Zenith Stevens. We have individuals in judgeships like Baylor Wortham. And so there are a number of people who are running positions for Democrats that are winning here in Jefferson County. It's just those few that are won or lost by 1,000 or more votes. And I will say, and I'll because it's just on my mind, that when it comes to the 2018 election, I think that there was a lot of extenuating circumstances that took place with Hurricane Harvey, the way that it displaced thousands of individuals across the county, specifically in Port Arthur, who typically support Democrats. And so the last thing that a lot of people who are fending for their lives are focused on is an election. And so I think now in 2020, when things are starting to be eased, people are starting to experience a sense of normalcy with regard to a natural disaster like that. Of course, we have COVID-19. It's still the principle of it that you have the ability to vote, whether it's in person or in the comfort of your own home, if you qualify, and you should go ahead and exercise that, because Democrats, it's time for a reckoning, and we are going to make sure that Jefferson County remains blue for years to come.
And Tony, another thing that I think had an impact when you left and they came back, what happened was all Democratic Party. Well, if you recall, many years ago, when we were almost 100% Democratic county, there was really two parties. There were conservative Democrats and there were liberal Democrats. And the conservative Democrats were a smaller group of Democrats, and they were the better fit in the Republican Party for some of their philosophies and things. But at the time, you couldn't win as a Republican, so I'm a conservative Democrat. And it became more comfortable to decide, well, really, I am a Republican. As the Republican Party gained popularity here in the South, many people who were lifelong Democrats, all of a sudden they're Republicans. The philosophy was there. It wasn't fashionable. It wasn't comfortable to identify the Republican Party many years ago. Now it's okay. So the conservative Democrats really became Republicans and joined in with Republicans who had some of the same philosophies regarding some of the social issues and some of the economic issues, some of the red meat issues. There was always two parties.
Right.
Came under the factions of the party.
Do you think that we can turn Texas blue again?
Well, I believe Texas is blue, but I know what you mean as far as the people who are actually elected. And I think that our greatest advocate, our greatest tool is the president in order to do that. I mean, he's our biggest cheerleader. He's the one that's helping us more than anyone else, because he's showing the hypocrisy of some of the philosophies that the party, the Republican Party, some members of some factions of the far right wing of the Republican Party, they're sort of going through what we went through. I mean, there's the term Republican, and then you have the far right wing Republicans who have some ideas that are kind of scaring the mainline Republicans. And so that happened in the Democratic Party, as I spoke before, when you had the really conservative Democrats and say, well, you know, I don't fit in this philosophy anymore. You have a lot of Republicans are saying, I don't fit in this Trump philosophy. I don't fit in this philosophy of division, this philosophy of making fun of people who may be handicapped, this philosophy that wants to see division instead of unity. How can you imagine all that this country has gone through, and the president makes no statement about coming together as a country, about solving our issues, about putting together a commission to study what we can do? None of this is happening. No other president would not be trying to put an end to this. But no, it works to his benefit. It works to his philosophy. The strife and the division works to his base.
Mm-hmm.
His base is not big enough to reach. He has to have independence, and he has to have good-minded, civic-minded Republicans who want what's best for this country. And no one can see what's going on now that's best for this country. It's really tearing the country apart. And people need to understand that there's a big difference in the protests and in rioting.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the people out there are protesting. There are some agitators in these groups, and if you look at some of the news, you'll see at the state capitol yesterday, day before yesterday, Texas Capitol, where they tore down things and spray painted the Capitol building. These were not African Americans doing that, even though the news coverage would say they were rioting. I mean, they were protesting the death of Mr. Floyd, but a lot of people take advantage of opportunities to do things that they couldn't normally do. Or they may do it in order so that the blame is placed on individuals who have a real good intention, but a few bad actors get in the bunch, break windows, set things on fire, when that's 1% of what the rest of the people were out there for. And we have to be aware of those things and be cognizant of those. The right to protest is certainly there. The president called the protesters thugs, yet in short, he said there are good people on both sides. Those things don't do anything but cause strife in the country. It doesn't. You can't say that people who are hurt, who are offended by the death of this man are thugs because they go out and protest.
Right.
You know, that's just not the way you operate as a leader of a free country.
Right. And I was saying that earlier, is that protesting, great. Peaceful protesting is great. A calmness about it, but we're representing what we're fighting for. We're tired. The people are tired. Let's listen here. We've got 40 right now in this country, right now, the United States of America. We have a coronavirus. Now let's not get this distracted about Wayne Floyd. We've got coronavirus is still here. We have 40 million people unemployed. We have, let's see here, not only 40 million unemployed, there was one more other thing that I was going to discuss, and I went blank and I didn't write my notes down. But how can you say you're doing a good job? How can you say we're making America great again?
Well, I think in part that also shows that, you know, you can point to growth in GDP or record profits that are being made by multi-billion-dollar companies and say that is success, that is growth, and that's in one part it is. But if anything, what COVID-19 has shown is that the majority of Americans are one paycheck away from going hungry, losing their home, defaulting on their loans. And so I think what that brings in is an added conversation about the difference between, oh, I have a job versus having a job that not only allows you to pay your bills, but to save and to grow. And I think that's a distinction that will be pointed out. And I've seen our presidential nominee, Joe Biden, talk a lot about, which is the importance of building up the middle class to be individually sustaining as opposed to reliant from one paycheck to another. So you bring up a good point about how there's this major shift economically among so many people within even a couple of weeks of being out to work, not knowing whether or not they were going to pay their bills.
Yeah, not only that, and I couldn't think of the last one I want to say is that we have right now over 100,000 deaths. Right now, over 100,000 deaths, and everybody's doing a fine job. No, we are not doing a fine job. They are not doing a fine job, and this is the reason why we're here tonight to explain, we have to vote from the local, state, to the national. We have to put some judges on to it. Don't you agree, Joe? A lot of times we vote, and we're voting local, but when they vote local, they understand the judgeship is important too.
Well, unfortunately, right now, the Texas Supreme Court is just rubber stamping whatever the Attorney General is saying.
Right.
The Attorney General and the governor wants. It's just like the situation with the lady with the hair salon in Dallas, where the governor put out a mandate, that you could be charged up to 180 days in jail and $1,000 fine for violating the order. That was his words. That was his directive. This lady gets sent to jail for 7 days, not for violating the order, but she got sent to jail for contempt of court. However, he went in and changed his order, made it retroactive to pass this particular event. Have you ever in your lifetime seen somebody go and change the law for one individual because it was the wrong individual? Do you think that was one of the beauty shops on Washington Boulevard? This lady had done that, would go in and change the order. The Supreme Court issued a writ of habeas corpus to pull her out of jail.
Right.
That would not have happened because there were other people who have been charged around the state. No, this was a woman of means, a woman who knew somebody, and just in open, we often say, man, if we could just shed some light on this, it would stop. This was done in the light of day.
That's right.
It's so bad that the Supreme Court of Texas would do that and just in blatant disregard for the rights of anybody but this one particular person.
Right.
And these are consequences of elections. These are consequences of who you elect.
Right.
If the governor didn't think you should go to jail for violating the order, he should not have put it in the order. He should not have said you could get 180 days in jail. He should not have said you could get up to $1,000 fine or $2,000 fine. But this lady became a hero.
Right.
She became a national symbol of just violating whatever the law is, because it didn't suit her. It didn't suit her. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the next time if there's an outbreak in the fall of coronavirus, that every beauty shop decide they're just going to stay open because they need to feed their children? Every bar is just going to open because they need to feed their children?
Right.
What we can do about it?
So
a precedent you set when you don't care about precedent, when you only care about taking care of your own, that's what happens.
that's why it's so important to vote. I keep emphasizing it all the time. Vote, vote, vote. It changes things if we vote. Now, let's take these last two incidents that just happened in Georgia. That young man was killed in Georgia. He was shot by running. And it happened in February, right? We didn't get a verdict on this until the video was shown and found out how this kid was killed. And they didn't arrest him. After they saw the video, that's when they arrested him. Now, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you up to Minnesota. We saw a live modern day lynching. And we watched it. And it took a week almost just to arrest the person who really murdered that young man. And what happened to the other three? Why? These two incidents are pretty much the same way, because the state attorney general there and the judges, they're all connected together, running a buddy scheme. It's the same thing in Minnesota. Why haven't they arrested the other three?
Well, let me say this. I think that there's becoming to be an awareness. We have been, as an African American community, saying this ever since I can remember as a kid, that this was going on, the police brutality and things like that. But we didn't have iPhones, or we didn't have instant video, so nobody really knew or would believe what we were saying, because it's really not believable.
Right.
Or to a person that doesn't experience this, they wouldn't believe that this happens. I mean, who in the for instance, in the white community sits their son down and explain to them what to do if they're stopped by a policeman to keep from getting shot? What to do, tell them what he calls you, what he says to you, how he pushes you around. If he slaps you, don't do anything, just say, yes, sir. How many white fathers have to tell that to their son? They don't tell it. They don't have to tell it to them. It's not going to happen to their son. I had to tell it to my son. My father had to tell it to me.
Yes.
I, as a state representative, with all the times of service I have, I'm still cognizant that if I'm in someone outside of Beaumont and get pulled over, I'm just another black person.
That's right.
Or you might think of me, or how could they do that to him? They don't. It's not him. It's a black man, and they are treated differently.
Right.
Now, I believe America is beginning to see that is true, because time after time they're seeing innocent people being harassed, being killed by road cops. There's some really good. I know some really good officers. Officers, I mean white officers and white chiefs that are marching with the protesters around the country. They're good officers and they're bad officers. And the problem is the good officers need to stand up when the bad officers manifest themselves. They need to say, we're not going to put up with that, because you're giving us all a bad name. Now, the fact that all this is available because of instant media is having an impact and is having a change. I don't think there's more, probably there's less of this going on now than it was 20 years ago. But to the white community, they think this is something, why, I can't believe it's just happening. Well, this has been happening for as long as I've been living. They talk about America being free. I mean, they just don't understand. I'm talking about the community doesn't always understand what we've been through. I can remember going to a store here in Beaumont as a child. I couldn't try on clothes. I couldn't try on a little hat for Easter. If a black person put the hat on, they had to buy the hat. I couldn't try on a pair of shoes. I remember standing on a piece of paper, and they would outline my foot on a piece of paper, and then sit a shoe on top of it to see what size shoe I wear. Because as a black kid, I couldn't put that shoe on unless I bought it. This was in my lifetime. People who hear this may not believe it. Blacks may not believe it as well. But these are things that have an effect on what's going on today. And people need to understand the problems and plights of people. They think, oh, okay, America's equal. Everybody's equal under the law. I tell you, if you just look at statistics, everybody's not equal under the law. You look at sentencing for the same crime, for the same offense, for the same age person committing the same crime, one being black, one being white, and see what the difference in the sentencing, what the sentences are, and how long they stay in jail. It's just a world of difference that people don't. They just go about their lives, and many of us go by our lives. A lot of it has to do with economics, and you don't experience a lot of those things, and you forget about it and move when you're busy. but these videos are really bringing it to the forefront where all America can see what some people are experiencing on a daily basis.
Amen, Joe. Preach, Joe, preach. Let me tell you something. This has been going on for years. This has been going on for years. That is why we need to come out en masse and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Hey, let's talk about registration. Speaking of voting, let's talk about voting registration. Let's get these people registered. How are we going to do that, Joe TRAHAN?
Well, first and foremost, the easiest thing is if you can contact the county clerk's office. And I actually got a message from Carolyn because with the right number. I gave you the right number initially, but this one's more specific to elections. And you can contact the county clerk's office, and this particular number is specific to elections. 409-835-8760. Again, that number is 409-835-8760. And you contact that specific number to request a vote by mail application, or even to request the a application to register to vote, period. In addition to that, you can even email me at joseph@josephtrahan.com with some basic information, including your first and last name, your address, and your birth date. And I can actually have the state of the Democratic Party's, the state party has provided a link where I can input that individual's information, and they will send a voter registration to a card to that individual to their home with a free postage stamp to then send to the county clerk's office. And I also encourage people to follow the Jefferson County Democratic Party Facebook page, because that's where we will be updating people on different voter registration drives. Because keep in mind, we're in a unique time, as both of you know, and many of the people watching know, with regard to elections. With COVID-19, it has really put a pause on traditional means and forms of campaigning. And so we're going to have to be more strategic in how we engage with voters. And that's going to require establishing alliances with different organizations like the Golden Triangle Black Caucus here in Jefferson County that's been recently newly resurrected. We have in Wilmaretta Lowe, Beverly Hatcher, Ermelyn Thomas, and others are involved with that. We have the Progressive Democrats of Southeast Texas. We have the Democratic Women of Southeast Texas. All of these groups that we can work together with our membership to try and reach out to people to register them to vote. What I'm really wanting to encourage people, and I've been doing this through email, phone, and just contacting people. If and Representative DeShotel mentioned this earlier, that the elderly are at an increased disproportionate risk of being negatively impacted by COVID-19. Usually because not only just simply because of age, but because of their immune system, maybe some underlying health conditions that exacerbate the situation, especially for the elderly African Americans. And so what I'm hoping is that people, through Young Democrats, which is another newly formed organization, we will be able to be the ones that can go out and register people to vote, to go and work the polls, because we are not as at risk of contracting COVID-19, and allowing the people that traditionally go out and work the polls, go out and block walk, try to allow them to do something that's safer, like going and doing virtual phone banks and calling people. And so there are a number of ways that we're trying to encourage people to register to vote. And we hope that all of that together will be fruitful. I know that we have received, according to the county clerk's office, thousands of vote by mail applications. And so with that shows that there is still that concern surrounding the coronavirus. And so we have to make every move possible to ensure that anybody that is eligible to vote by mail does so. And anyone that is not eligible can still make it a point of going, just reminding people to practice social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizer. I know the county clerk's office is working, and they're going to have those sorts of protective measures in place to ease the concern that some people may have, where they're not eligible to vote by mail, but they want to go and vote and exercise their constitutional right to vote. And if I may interject once more, this goes back to another group of individuals that are eligible to vote by mail. And those are individuals that you may be incarcerated, but you have not been found guilty of a felony. So if you're in jail and the election's going on, you have the right to be able to request a vote by mail application, receive a ballot, and vote. In addition to that, if you are off paper, meaning you completed your probation and you have a release letter from the governor's office, you can request if it's age appropriate, you can request a vote by mail application, or if you have a disability, or you can request a voter registration card and exercise that right to vote. Because a lot of people assume that once you are found guilty of a felony and you're put in prison, that you can never vote again. That's something that I think that has been parroted a lot. But the fact of the matter is, if you complete your probation, if you're off paper and you have that documentation from the governor's office, you can renew your right to vote. And I think that's incredibly important for people to recognize going into November 3rd.
It's a very important, and we need to get that word out of the issue about being incarcerated, being convicted of a felony. Once you've been discharged, if you were sent to the penitentiary and served your time and gotten off of parole and been completed everything, you can register and you can vote again. That is the law in Texas, but it's just another example of just not wanting people to exercise their right to vote. I had a bill in that you would give a voter registration card within the discharge packet from the Texas criminal system when you are discharged as a free person, including that packet, not only a bus ticket home, but a voter registration card to register to vote. That did not pass. And why didn't it pass? I'll let you each answer that question yourself. But these people had a right to vote, simply putting voter registration in their discharge packet as fully emancipated citizens. No, that didn't go over.
This is again, I'm kind of repeating myself over. We want to protest. Let's protest. Let's keep our monies in our pockets, and let's keep our monies and support our black businesses. And speaking of black businesses, on July 7th is Blackout 2020. July 7th. I think we should have that once a week, but we're gonna bark out all businesses that is not black business, black-owned business on that day. That's July the 7th. Is Blackout 2020. So make a note of that date. Put that date down. And another thing, again, on Tuesday, the Texas Young Democrats of Southeast Texas will be joining me on the show, and we're going to talk about. We're going to pick up where we left off here, but it's time, like Joe was stating, that it's time to build that young generation, young people into the circle here. Let them bring that energy, so that we can get more young people to vote. And
well, as cliche as it sounds, they are going to be leaders of tomorrow. So many established individuals that we have now are not vampires. So there's no limited lifespan. And so people that have championed our causes for decades, who serve in office or who have served in office, it's really important to provide mentorship opportunities to help support young people in their efforts to try and become more politically active. And one thing that I wanted to touch on, Tony, you've mentioned several times, has to do with the importance of voting down ballot.
Thank you.
It's not enough to have a Democrat in the White House. It's not enough to have a Democrat in the U.S. Senate or in Congress. We have to make sure that we have Democratic representation here in the state. We have to make sure we have Democratic representation in the local courthouse, commissioner's court, the county judgeship, county clerk, the sheriff's department, you name it, because all of that works in tandem. It's a domino effect. And so one area of authority the president may have, it stops where the authority of a state representative like Joe DeShotel begins. And so when people talk about infrastructure, public education, when they talk about tax rates, things of that nature, much of that is determined at the local level or at most the state level. And so again, it's not enough just to go and vote, oh, Joe Biden, check, I'm done. No, because he's going to need help down ballot to achieve those goals and platform points that you voted him because you relate to that. And so you have to have that connectiveness. Early on in this conversation, I talked about at one time, we had a state senator. We had two, I believe it was two. We had a number of individuals. We had Jack Brooks at one time. We had Nick Lamson. We had David Burnson and Carl Parker and Joe DeShotel. Just imagine that for a moment. And having that kind of camaraderie, having that length and breadth of connection between the top all the way down is what helped achieve so much here in Jefferson County in Southeast Texas. That's no longer in existence. As I said before, the one giant we have standing in the state is Representative Joe DeShotel. And that's phenomenal. And we're fortunate, but we have got to grow on that so that he doesn't have to carry the load. And so a big thing, and I know Ermelyn Thomas is going in my head, not really, but I'm thinking about this. I have to remind everyone, we cannot vote straight ticket any longer. That's not an option. So you can't click one and you're done. You have to physically go down the ballot and select everyone, ranging from president going down to county commissioners. All of that is now your responsibility. There's that level of convenience that is no longer there. And so we have to recognize that you're going to have to go down ballot. Do not submit that application until you have selected every race that a Democrat is running in and select that Democrat's name. That's a huge component of November 3rd, because it's the first time in the state of Texas in decades, if not ever, that we don't have straight ticket voting.
And we're gonna vote blue this November, everybody. Voting blue all the way from the national all the way down to the local. We've got to we want revenge. We got to vote. You want revenge?
Tony, vote. It's just one thing, because I think it's significant to point out with the racial strife that's going on, the protests all across the country, from East Coast to the West Coast. Today is and not much is being said about it. I haven't seen anything on the national media, but today is the 99th year anniversary of the massacre in Tulsa.
All right.
The race riot in Tulsa, where over 1,200 African-American homes were burned, 35 square blocks, 300 African-Americans were killed by a white mob that came through their neighborhood and massacred all these people 99 years ago today. So this is nothing new in our country. No one wants to talk about race relations. No one wants to take that issue serious. Wants to bury it, and you bury it, you cover it, and it festers, and it explodes. You bury it, cover it, festers, and explodes. This is something that needs to be done on a national level, and we certainly don't have anyone in the White House now that is willing to take that as an issue and every aspect of our lives.
This is why I have this show every Sunday and Tuesday evening, because it's knowledge is power. And a lot of our people are not even aware of that race route in Tulsa.
Right. Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right. Right. And a lot of people don't understand that we had a race route right here in Beaumont, Texas in 1993.
Yep.
Everybody, people, is there. It's history right here in Beaumont, Texas. So that's why it's always been a struggle, and we've always gone through the struggle. It's been like this, and I pray for my son when he walks out the door in the morning, that God protects him and cover him and bring him home back safe, because we know what we have to go through in our vehicle to go somewhere. We know how we fetch up when the police is riding behind us, knowing we haven't done anything. That is the fear that we carry with us. So this is why it's in our mind most of the time. So, but if we want to get what we want and we're tired of what we're going through, we have to vote. So my people, register and vote. Register. You can mail-in ballots again. And let's make a change, because I say this, I'll say it again, I'll say it all the way to November. We've got to vote like we never voted before. So Joseph, tell me about your new tell us about your Democratic Party fundraiser that you're saying for membership. Go with it. I got your screen, baby.
So as many of you may know, we are reintroducing the Sustaining Membership Fund within the Jefferson County Democratic Party. I'm told by previous county chairs and elected officials that at one time we had hundreds of people that committed monthly to supporting the local Democratic Party. And I'm wanting to reintroduce that to give some buy-in to individuals that may think, oh, my $5 doesn't matter, my $10, I'm giving $25 a month. I can't afford to give $10,000 checks here and there. And so, one of the ways that I think we as Democrats in general can support our party and feel like we're contributing in some way is to support the headquarters, to make sure that we have a central hub for all of our campaigns, strategies, get out the vote efforts can kind of circle around. And so we do have our county headquarters on Calder. It's still there. It's not changing. And with that, there are expenses. And so so far, we've actually gotten to a little over 50% of our goal of $2,000 a month, which will provide us the ability to not only maintain operating overhead, but also to just add a little bit more money to different efforts, whether it's with phone banking, targeting certain communities like Port Arthur that has not been as engaged. And then with that, we can then better focus our larger donations on get out the vote efforts and worrying less about maintaining the headquarters. So it's to give everyone some buy-in and an opportunity to give, whether it's $1 a month or $1,000 a month. It is appreciated. And, they like to call us snowflakes. When we're all combined together, we're an avalanche. And so it's one thing to keep in mind that there's a lot of great things that we can do collectively to make a difference and to show people that we are strong, that we are cohesive, and that we are to be reckoned with as Democrats here in Southeast Texas.
It's so easy to do, Tony. It's so easy to go to the Jefferson County Democratic site webpage, and you can click on it and bring you where you can put in a credit card and you forget about it. It be $10 a month, whatever you want to give, and it all adds up.
Right.
And I will acknowledge that both Tony Renfro and State Rep Joe DeShotel are contributors to the Sustaining Membership Fund, and I greatly appreciate y'all walking the talk.
Hey, please, people, complete your census and vote. Complete those census. Let's go to our comments here a little bit. We got some time, and let's go here to Kevin Jackson. Let's see what Kevin has to say today. Kevin is saying, I understand some things should be enacted. President Obama spoke on grassroots movement. What can we do in small steps to start setting the trend? Great question.
Well, from my perspective, as someone that's looking to organize local Democrats, if you want to change something, I've always believed it starts with me or starts with you, as the saying goes. And so you have to be able to evaluate what is your sphere of influence. Are you a member of a Bible study? Are you a member of a fraternity or sorority that has individuals that are able to vote or who have influence? What are you doing to communicate and articulate a message of getting citizens out to vote, exercising that civic duty? In addition to that, there are a number of clubs that actually exist that are actually politically slanted. I mentioned a few earlier, but again, I'll say, we have Young Democrats of Southeast Texas. We have the Democratic Women of Southeast Texas. We have the Golden Triangle Black Democrats. We have Progressive Democrats. A number of organizations that have Facebook pages. You can even message me and I'll get you directly to their officers to become a member or to show up to the next meeting. Those are ways that you can get involved on the grassroots level. You can also utilize, as I said before, going back to your sphere of influence, what are you doing as a voter to engage with your social media followers? What kind of posts are you making? Are you just sharing cooking videos? Well, I mean, it's great, but are you going further than that? Are you sharing why it is you think it's important to vote? Are you annoying the heck out of people like I am, asking them if they would like to vote by mail, if they would like to contribute to the local Democratic Party? It starts with you. You have a lot of agency and power within yourself, whoever you are, regardless of whether or not you have a position or a platform, because you know people. You know people that can vote. You know people that have a voice. And so it's being able to leverage that. And I think those are all great ways of getting involved, like what President Obama talked about, because he was very effective at coalition building and uniting entities and people around a common cause. And if we can remind people of what the end goal is, we can get more people involved. But again, it starts with you. Don't ask of someone what you wouldn't expect of yourself.
We're gonna have a movement. We're gonna have a strong movement going all the way to the end of this year, and also next year, as we vote next May in the local ballots. So we got to vote. I've got another one here from Chair Roy, and it's asking, what do these guys? Let's see, what do these gentlemen think it would take to get out to the polls? Beaumont only averaged 13% turnout on local voting. That's good.
I'm sorry, you cut out at that end part. Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I'm gonna direct that question to you. But the gentleman is asking, Beaumont is only averaging 13% turnout on local voting. What is going to take to get more people out to the polls?
Well, as I said earlier, a lot of it's going to take some action by the individual self. And so any opportunity you have, you want to make it a point of informing and engaging people. You want to encourage them to follow Facebook groups and pages that consistently update people on when city council elections are going to be, or what's going to be on a city council agenda. But beyond that, I think it's really a failure in the education system overall, with teaching people about civics and what government is and what different levels of government have authority over. And I think part of that is intentional, especially here in the state of Texas, because the more people that you, and I say among Republicans, because the more potential you have for people to be informed, the less power they have in terms of a voting bloc. And so we want to make it.
I think, Joe, Joe,
if you're an educator, if you are a church leader, if you are a mentor, you name it, educate people on what city government does. Are they
Joseph,
about their roads?
Joseph, I think break it up a little bit.
From outside entrepreneurs.
I think you break it up a little bit. Now you're frozen up on us. Joe, yeah, I think so. Let me go ahead and
starts with.
I think too, Tony. I can hardly hear you.
Step up.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I see you pulled me onto the screen. Yeah, I'll follow up with Joseph was saying that we have to, it begins with us. I mean, your friends, Terry, that you know, your neighbors, people that from your church, make sure, continue to ask them, have you voted? Have you voted? And because I think that this election, because of the situation that's going on today with Mr. Floyd and with the president and all, I think those are all motivating factors that are going to get the voting averages up. I think that because these votes determine so much of your quality of life, and so people just don't believe. They just don't believe that voting makes a difference. And I mean, I guess being involved in it, I know what the difference it makes in the office.
Thank you, Joe. I think, let's see if I've got one more. Let's see here we know. There's more local questions asked. So just while our time is not run out as it is. Let's see. It's not turning. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do here is it's about that time, and I want to make sure you understand. If we want to protest, we want revenge, we want justice. Do you really want justice instead of injustice? We have to start a movement voting here and voting everyone to vote. We need to vote. We need to get out, everybody out. Everyone needs to vote. We've got to vote like never before. You want justice? We've got to do it. You want justice for Wayne Floyd and the many others that has gone through murder and the lives have been destroyed, and family lives have been destroyed, and the black man lives have been destroyed, and you're having fear because your son or daughter is going out on the streets, and you don't know if they're going to come back. You want justice? You must vote. We don't have to rout. We don't have to loot. We are a $3.8 trillion power. We are power. We have power. But we must utilize that power in the right way. And I'm going to say this again. We must vote. Complete your census, register to vote, ask for a mail-in ballot, and vote, people. Vote. I don't care how many times you vote. So with that said, I thank you guys for coming out tonight. I thank you for my guests, Joe DeShotel, and I think I've lost Joseph Trey. There you go. We had to reboot again.
My cell phone died, and so I have them on my iPad.
That's what it was. We couldn't get. I was about to close out. I keep saying Wayne Ford. I'm sorry, Barry. George Ford. I've been so distraught by this incident, and I'm just gone. My mind is gone off. But it is George Floyd. I don't know why I said Wayne Floyd. George Floyd. Thank you, Joe TRAHAN, for your time with me. And again, people remember on Tuesday, the Texas Young Democrat going to be joining us. Let's say it. I want you to be safe. Ermeline said, "Be safe. Wear that mask. Remember, the president is a master of distraction. The president is a master of distraction. He's going to try to distract us from what the real topic is. What I mean, let's be honest. The guy is good. He's a good liar. But he's a master of distraction, and he is trying to distract us and keep us divided. So we got to vote. Yes. And we're talking from the top national all the way down. We got to clean out the Senate. We got to get this city. We got to make this county, a Democratic stronghold again, and we can do it. We getting there. We've got the energy. We got the young folks. We got the old folks. We got them all. We can do this. And I really want to get with people here so that we can organize a huge registration drive right here in this area. So I'm going to be working on that. And folks, if you know anybody that that would like to join my show on Sunday or Tuesday, please inbox me. That can give our audience more information, be more informative about what we're talking about. Knowledge is power. Because we won't have any knowledge. We won't have any power. We don't have any knowledge. So with that said, thank you, Barry Beverly, for getting my name straight on George Floyd. We want revenge for George Floyd. We got to vote. With Joe, the last word. You have the last word before we go.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity to visit with you and everyone that's listening in. And I think we're beginning to realize the importance of participating in the electoral process and getting out to vote.
Joseph?
Ditto.
All right.
I will say, just remember, we got July 14th primary runoff election, and then on to November 3rd.
Oh, wait a minute. Before I go, let's do this. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's Joe. Who is running? Who's in the ballot on July the 14th? That's one more time. Let's let them know what we got to do on July 14th.
So for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1, Place 1, that's going to be a runoff between Naomi Showers Doyle and George Milhouse. And we also have for U.S. Senate, there is Royce West and MJ Hager. Okay,
guys, people, you hear that? We've got an election. We got a runoff on July the 14th. Let's make an example. Let's get a head start and make an example out of this election so we can be ready and prepared for November. Now, in November, we got our superstar, my man I'm voting for, Joe DeShotel. Tell us who's in that race.
Joe DeShotel, that's enough.
Hey, don't forget. Well, you know, hey, listen, Zena Stevens, our Jefferson County Sheriff.
In the District 22.
Right, yeah. We're going to vote her back in here again. We're going to reelect her. So there's no other body running other than that. But we're going to vote Zena Stevens in for our county sheriff, and we've got my big time buddy Joe DeShotel and the district, state district, Joe 22.
District 22. I thought you were referring to District 22 because I had an opponent and I just.
I will.
And in addition to that, we have running for Congress in District 14 is Adrian Bell against Randy Weber, who's been in long enough thanks to redistricting and gerrymandering.
Right.
And we also have Javon Pollard, who's running for constable. All of these individuals have Republican opponents, but I'm confident that we are all going to see victory November 3rd.
All right. I forgot about my girl, Vaughn Pollard. We got to get them in. We're going to make it happen. We are going to make it happen. Did we miss anybody that's going to be running in November? Oh, Roy West, right? Ross West?
Yes.
Yes, he's in a runoff in July.
Right. In July? Okay.
That's the U.S. Senate race.
Okay, great. That's in July 14th. Okay, great. So I'm sure have him on here in the next week or two, and we'll get that going. And also, I want to have some of the candidates to come on that's going to be running in the runoff in July 14th. So let's go, Joe. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching Knowledge is Power. We're on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. For those who do not have on Facebook, you can always go to YouTube Live, subscribe to Knowledge is Power Podcast Live with Tony Renfro, your host. Thank you. See you Tuesday at 8 o'clock, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right.
All right.